Matt Hamilton of Good Morning Football. Matt, really appreciate you taking the time out to join us here today. Thank you so much for joining Too Close to Call. Oh, make sure you unmute yourself down in the bottom corner.
That would help. Thanks. I appreciate you having me, Chris. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much for coming on. Matt is a Jaguars fan, so him and I are invested in the game this weekend. And let's start there, Matt. Let's start with those Jaguars, actually, because we've kind of talked about it on this show a little bit, but it feels like everyone is actually scared to admit it. Is Trevor Lawrence a bust?
I think it's way too early to say that right now, especially given the dysfunction that we've seen with that coaching staff and everything going on. You've seen signs of growth out of him. You've seen the flashes of what everybody thought he was going to be coming out of Clemson. But there's also, there's been a lot of bad there. You can't sugarcoat it. There's been a lot of bad. I do think a lot of it has to do with just how poorly designed this offense has been. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the clips floating around there on Twitter of the guys, running
into
the
each
same
other.
area, running into each other. Yeah, it's just when you have that type of stuff going on, it's hard to evaluate a quarterback when you get plays like that. And I just think, the coaching staff top to bottom, it's not just Urban Meyer, it's the entire staff that he brought in there. When you see the way that other young quarterbacks are supported in this league with forward-thinking coaches, to see Urban Meyer bring in a bunch of guys that were retreads that were basically fired because they weren't evolving along with the rest of the league. So, I don't want to give him a pass for this year because, he didn't perform. He didn't perform well.
So who would you want to? Who you mentioned the coaching staff? Then who would you think would be best fit to come in there and help Trevor Lawrence progress, or who do you want to see come in there?
I think the idea of Kellen Moore is really intriguing. I think he's done a fantastic job in Dallas. I know he has a lot of talent there to work with, but he's the guy I spent a little bit of time with when I was in the scouting department for the Lions back in 2013, and he is one of the most intelligent football people I've ever been around. He's a football genius, and that's why he was able to hang on as long as he did, despite the fact that he also had maybe one of the weakest arms I've ever seen from a quarterback. Because he was that smart and that good of a decision maker. But I think he can really help foster the growth of a young quarterback. And I think if you bring in a defensive coordinator that has had some head coaching pedigree or has been around the game longer to kind of help him navigate, like let's say, a Vic Fangio, if the Broncos were to let him go, I think that would be a good idea and kind of help him, ease into a head coaching role, even though he's only been coaching for 3 years. But yeah, I like that idea a lot. I think they're going to need to do something to support Trevor Lawrence's growth.
Let's look ahead now to this weekend. We've got in the AFC 2 spots open. You've got the Colts, Raiders, Chargers, Steelers, and Ravens all vying for those 2 spots. So if you had to pick 2 teams out of that lot, you've got Colts at Jags, Chargers at Raiders, and Steelers at Ravens. So really a lot of that is going to sort it all out between the Chargers, Raiders, and Steelers, Ravens. It's just a matter if the Colts can win against the Jags.
Yeah, and I think I don't see any way that Jacksonville wins this game, to be honest.
Everyone keeps saying that, which only makes me less and less confident. I'm like the least confident person in this game, and I'm the Colts fan. My fiance yells at me every day for it, but I can't.
Least confident in every game.
That's how it is when you're a fan. You always look for, you don't ever want to be too confident. But yeah, I think they take care of business, and I would expect the Chargers to win as well, and get in. I think they have just too much. It's admirable the job that the Raiders have done to hang in there with everything that happened to them this season and stay in this race. But I just think the Chargers have too much for them to deal with.
I really think the Raiders could surprise them in that game. That's going to be a really fun game either way. And yeah, no, I said 50 points. We haven't won in Jack since 2014. You guys have your picks set. There's nothing, well, not set, but it doesn't really waver too much. Like I'm coming up with every excuse as to why the Colts are going to lose that game. On the NFC side, 49ers and Saints. Do you think the 49ers take care of business versus the Rams and lock it up, or is going the Saints sneak in?
I think the 49ers are in big trouble. Their whole secondary has been dealing with COVID issues. We don't know if they're going to be able to return and play. It's really, really up in the air right now. So if those guys if their whole starting secondary is out, I think I don't know. I can't see how they pull that one out. And then obviously the quarterback situation is going to be a big issue too. If Jimmy G starts, what is he going to be able to do? And then throwing Trey Lance in there against that defense, swarming with superstars is a scary proposition too. So I expect the Rams to win that game.
Just line Debo up at quarterback at this point.
Yeah,
you might as well, right?
Yeah, if you're going to use him everywhere else, you might as well. And I think the Saints are going to beat the Falcons. So I see the Saints getting in.
Yeah, so we've got Saints versus Cordero Patterson and Debo Samuel versus the Rams. It should be a couple of good matchups. Matt, on Good Morning Football, you do your own segment. It's called Hammer Time, and today you had one, and it's fitting that Chris Crawford, Kick My Dog, is joining us here. Stu is a noted Bengals fan. Let's take a look at at least the beginning.
It seems
of
like every
today.
year we see a contending team get red hot down the stretch of the regular season, where everything just seems to start clicking for them at the perfect time. Remember, a year ago it was the Bucks who looked absolutely unstoppable to end the year. Going into this postseason, though, Kyle, as you said, I think that team might be the Bengals. Joe Burrow is on another planet right now with the way he's playing. Look at what he's done over the last 2 weeks. I mean, this is one of the best 2-game stretches we've ever seen. He also now leads the league in completion percentage and yards per attempt on the year.
So there you have it there, the Bengals situation. You go on and actually present that Burrow is a good odds kind of situation right now where he's sitting at, and they're the Bengals rather, for a Super Bowl run. Talk a little about that Bengals team and what you like from them late. And I mean, I'm concerned that they're sitting Joe Burrow the week before, because as a Colts fan, I've seen that story play out many times before with Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and that's the one thing, and I touch on it a little briefly in there, is you just hope that sitting him out this last week of the season doesn't cool him off any. Because when you have a guy that's playing the way he's playing right now, you don't want to break that routine. These guys, these players are creatures of habit, and you break those habits, you break that routine a little bit. You never know. Some guys it doesn't bother them at all. Some guys it can throw them off. And Peyton was obviously one of those guys that it would throw him off a little bit. But no, I mean, I just love the way he's playing right now. Just mentally, the way that he dissects opposing defenses is really special, especially for a young quarterback. Obviously, he's super accurate and has incredible playmakers around him too. But he does a great job of putting those guys in the best position to make plays. Their defense, the secondary is okay. I think their front can get after people, which makes them dangerous defensively. Trey Hendrickson's had a phenomenal year. But yeah, and I think the way that they can run the ball too, the way that Mixon has played this year, and while that offensive line has had some issues in pass pro, they've been able to run the ball really consistently well. And I think that bodes well if they get into some bad weather games too.
Yeah, and you mentioned just Joe Burrow and where he throws the ball to help them out. And one of the plays was that 75-yard catch and run by Jamar Chase. You've all probably seen it. We showed it on the show last week too. But you talked about in that clip there that goes on where the placement of where Joe Burrow put that ball allowed Jamar Chase to plant and move to get open in that space. But then it also, on the back end, created a situation later in the game when Jamar Chase had another, but it was a go route down the sideline. But all the corners and safeties keyed in on that route that he was going to come in on again because of the situation before where he broke loose and went for 1,000,000 yards and ended up burning them for 1,000,000 yards again. But Stu, I'm curious, do you have any questions about the Bengals and their situation?
I have a number of questions. Thanks for letting me jump
in. Do you have a question?
I didn't say I was going to ask all of them, but after this segment, if you want to run back Matt's segment and just play the whole thing and let him talk about all of the Bengals' great aspects, by all means, I think everybody on the show will be happy to hear it. One thing I did want to point out before my question is last time Joe Burrow had a hiatus in a gap from playing a game to another game that mattered was likely the end of the LSU season, his last season, where he proceeded to throw 6 touchdown passes in the first half of the college football playoff game. Otherwise, his first game this year against the Vikings, threw for 261 yards and 2 touchdowns. But my question for you, Matt, would be if you are the Bengals, looking at the teams that are probably going to be in the bottom half of the playoffs that they may match up in with the AFC, who do you want to see and who do you definitely not want to see as your first round matchup?
Ooh.
That's a great question, and honestly, with the way the AFC has been this year, I don't think there's really anybody that I'd be, completely terrified of. I think, we saw what they were able to do to the Chargers. I think they also got the Chargers have been such a weird team because they've just been pretty inconsistent. So I feel like they're the type of team, if you get them on the wrong day, they could knock somebody out early. Obviously the Patriots, you're going to get a tough game out of them. I don't know if I don't think they have the top end firepower that they're going to be able to rip off a bunch of games in a row. But they're going to be disciplined. They're going to be well coached. I really don't think there's anybody in the NFC. I think it's a different scenario. In the AFC, I think everybody is like on the same plane, and I'm not scared of anybody, but I'm also not taking anybody for granted in that field either.
So what would your top three in that AFC be? If you had put you on the spot, rank them, as favorite to make it out of the AFC, least favorite for top three.
So I think the Bengals, I think the Chiefs, and I would say the Titans with Derrick Henry coming back.
In that order, or just those are the top three?
I'm going to say in that order.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is.
See, the concern...
very close margins between all of them.
But my concern is, and we've talked about this on the show before too, is that especially in the AFC this year, it's just been a flavor of the week situation. And the Bengals are the new flavor of the week. 2 weeks ago, if we had you on here, it might have been the Colts that we're all saying, talking about that they're going to be the number one team in that. And now they're not even in that top three rating of the AFC. So I don't like that top spot.
that's how razor thin the margins are, I think, in that conference. I don't know if I've ever seen a conference in this league there was so little separation between the top, the number one seed and the final wild card spot.
You had the Titans to start the year, and then it transitioned into, back to the Chiefs because they started playing really well, and then it hit the Patriots, and then it hit the Colts, and now it's the Bengals. But every time after one of those teams has climbed to the top of the mountain, they've fallen back down. So it'll be interesting to see. In the NFC, I mean, Packers, do you give the Bucs a chance with how hurt they are?
Yeah, I still give them a chance because the longer that they can hang on, they should be getting some more of those guys back. Leonard Fournette, it seems like the hamstring's a serious situation, but there's a chance he comes back for the playoffs. If he's not back for the wild card round, he should be back for the divisional round. And I think he's become increasingly important to that offense, as with the Godwin injury and now the Antonio Brown situation. But no, I still give them a chance in there. I think all the top five teams in the NFC, I don't think have a legitimate chance. Obviously I do think the Packers are the clear favorite there, but I think everybody in that field has a chance other than probably those final two wild card spots.
Matt, really thank you for taking time out. I'll let you get out of here. If anyone else has a question real quick to close out on. Otherwise, we'll let you go, Matt.
Matt, when are you going to start a show on the Bleachr App?
Oh man, I got to talk to Chris and figure that one out.